Okay, so hi everyone. It's just me right now because the rest of the team is well, except Stacy. Sorry, Stacy. The rest of the team should be asleep, but Stacy is here up early, and I can see Kavia in Trinidad and Rafika in Antigua, which is great. Today I've got a short presentation just to kind of set the scene, give a little bit of context, and then we'll have time for networking. Right now, we're still doing, as everyone's new, we're still doing the networking in random groups. So you'll be put with a random group of people just to get a sampling of people from across the network. And in the future, we will start to give people the chance to interact with people, focus more on their region or focus more on certain topics. For now, though, of course, I'm hoping that most of you are now in Slack and getting familiar. I saw Jesse, you've been active on there. That's great. And some others as well. Is everyone getting familiar with Slack? Is anyone having any problems with Slack? Sigrid said maybe. Oh, you're on mute. Hang on.
I really have to get the hang how it works.
Okay.
But especially as if you want to connect with people, you need to send them a private message, or because we can't do it on the WhatsApp, can we?
Yes. So the WhatsApp last year got a little bit hectic, and so we decided to disable that so we can just use the WhatsApp to post notices from our side. On Slack, you can either message people directly or you can message the different channels. So the whole group, if you have an announcement or something that you want to share with the world. But also, for example, use Jesse as an example. I posted some interesting topics on, was it tourism? I've actually forgot what you posted now, Jesse.
My mute button. I posted a bunch of things, James. So one was about tourism. And sort of what's going on in tourism land in all of your other islands. It was more of a question. And then I posted some stuff about the BBNJ treaty negotiations, which is among UN countries negotiating how we should govern the high seas, so areas beyond national jurisdiction in the oceans among UN countries, which this week actually has sort of I guess fail is not the right word, but it didn't reach a conclusion this week, unfortunately, and they're going to go back to more negotiations, I think, this summer.
Okay. So for example, Jesse posted about those topics, and you can hopefully connect with some of the others who had replied on that. So right now we are doing this in a bit of an informal way. We're not giving just a spreadsheet of everyone's contact information, partly for privacy reasons. We don't have permission to do that. But I think in the past, we did have someone email the whole contact list, and we just want to avoid that. So it's a bit informal. It'll be who you bump into on the Slack or in the groups for now. And we'll start to facilitate more conversations to help you meet specifically with people with those shared interests. So I'm going to do my quick presentation. I'll try and give you as much time as possible to go into the breakout rooms, but feel free as well to post some comments in the chat as I'm going, or even share some info about what you're doing in the chat here on Zoom while I'm talking. Oh, and I forgot, but we are going to start off with a bit of fun. Isabel's put together a quiz for us to do, so we'll do a quick test of your island knowledge in the Island Innovation quiz. And then the main topic today I'm going to talk about is what is called the quadruple helix, which is a fancy way of saying the four main sectors that make up different stakeholders. So NGOs, government, private sector, and academia, and to talk about how those four different sectors interact and collaborate, and why that matters for sustainable development. And the breakout room conversation will be based around that. So I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of that. But firstly, the quiz. So we'll ask you to please put your answers in the chat. we're going to whiz through the quiz quite quickly. So please make sure that you get your answer in the chat quickly and ready to go. As soon as you see it, just type your answer straight in the chat. So I hope everyone's ready. We've tried to get a range of different questions to cover different regions. Jesse's ready. Okay, let's go. Okay, oh, there's another slide. There we go. This is actually a hard one, especially if you're not from this region. So to give you a bit of a clue, okay, good people. So for those who don't know, this is a mixture of Dutch, Caribbean, and Latin American architecture, which hopefully gives you a clue. But that was a good spot for those of you who got it. So who was first? Jules, good job, Jules. It's Curacao. It's a beautiful place. If you haven't ever get the chance to go, would highly recommend it. Okay, so in a different region, which country is the Javanese language spoken? Oh, we got some experts here. Shirag straight in there with the point. So that goes to Shirag for first answer. Indonesia, which is made up of many different languages spoken in the region. Which country should I be in to celebrate St. Patrick's Day? If you get the less obvious answer, in which country in the Caribbean would I be celebrating St. Patrick's Day, then extra bonus points. Yes. Oh, Jules is killing it today. Of course, anywhere in the world, someone said. But yes, Ireland. But actually, this was a new one to me. You might have seen that we're organizing a webinar next month with Montserrat to promote their tourism program for digital nomads. And Montserrat is the Emerald Island of the Caribbean, is how it markets itself because of its strong historical connections with Ireland. And they have a huge St. Patrick's Day party there. So I learned that one recently. Okay. Name this island nation. I've given you some clues. Oh, this is a harder one. Sigrid says Fiji. Any other guesses? Carol says Fiji. Yes, Sigrid, you were right. Fiji. Good one. The map of Fiji. Bula Vinaka is hello in Fijian and the flag there in the Pacific because of the Bula. Yes, good knowledge. Okay. Where is Kilauea? One of the active volcanoes. Isabel thought this was a hard one, but I knew you'd get it. Someone says they can't hear me. Can everyone else hear me? Okay, yeah, I think that might be on your side. Yes, Hawaii. Another region, which island is shared by Argentina and Chile? And this is the province that Isabel comes from, more or less. Oh, taking longer. Don't Google it. It's, okay, so if you go to the southernmost tip of Latin America, it's the coldest part of the continent, right down in the south. In English, it's Land of Fire. Tierra del Fuego, Jules. Did you Google it, Jules? Tierra del Fuego, yes. Oh, good job. It's one of the largest islands in the world to be shared by between two countries, half in Argentina, half in Chile. And Isabel is from the Chilean side of the province, but actually from an island even further south of Tierra del Fuego. There we go. An absolutely beautiful place. You can check out her Instagram for her pictures of there. What is the largest island in Spain? I think this is the last or second to last question. It's a tricky one, actually, because there's a few guesses, I'm sure. Jules says Mallorca. Joao says Gran Canaria. Borja says Las Palmas. Patricia says Tenerife. Actually don't know. Mallorca, someone says. It is Mallorca. Okay, I wasn't sure if one of the Canary Islands were bigger, but Mallorca's the biggest one. Okay. Staying in the same, well, kind of same region. Which country's capital resides on 2 islands? You have some clues there in the language. So it's a capital city of a larger country. Jesse says Denmark. Chirag says Netherlands. Don't think Netherlands has those letters, does it, Sigrid? No. Sweden. Anyone else? Any other guesses? Okay, Copenhagen is one of the only capitals shared by an island. Someone's shaking their head at me, so we maybe need to fact check that, but I think it's right. Okay, there we go. Thank you for the quiz. Some good knowledge there. I think my unscientific scoring of who got the quickest answers, I think it was Jules. So well done, Jules. What time is it where you are? You're up early also? Maybe not. It's 4 a.m. Wow. That was very good knowledge for 4 a.m. Appreciate you being here. 5 a.m. Okay, great. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this topic, especially on this discussion of why Island Innovation uses the quadruple helix model and what that model is when we approach sustainable development. So you should hopefully know a bit about Island Innovation now and have a good understanding. So I'm not going to spend too long on this background, but I'm going to leave the slides in when we share the slides out. So Island Innovation, we work as a network, and in our network, we make a specific goal to connect companies, governments, universities, NGOs, etc., and to try and make connections across those different sectors. So not only are we communicating between islands and between island regions, but a big part of what we do is to make connections between different sectors and industries. Because my belief is that for successful sustainable development, a lot of the conversation is actually about communication. How can different islands communicate with each other and share knowledge? But how can these sectors, different industries that may be on the same island, actually collaborate and work together? So when I say sector, that's the government, private sector, university, NGO. And when I say industry, I'm thinking agriculture or energy or blue economy. That's the definition that we use, just to be clear on the difference between those two. So hopefully you've met some of our team members. I think just Stacey's here today, but all of our team are spread out in different time zones, and would encourage you to go ahead and connect with our team members on LinkedIn. Actually, we don't have here Adriel, who's our newest fellow, joining Alexia and Aria, and she'll be working with Isabel on the Island Innovation Ambassador Program as well. But make sure you connect with our team. The network here, hopefully you're getting an idea of the different types of parties and stakeholders within our network, and how we go about communicating with everyone, with using the press, using our ambassadors, sharing the island communities, and we're building our academic partner network. And here are some of the SDGs that we support, but we don't focus specifically on 1 or 2 SDGs, sustainable development goals. We try and cover a broad cross-section, because it's hard to talk about, for example, climate action without talking about agriculture and energy and tourism, especially in a small island context. All of these things link in very closely. So the 17 here, partnerships for the goals, I would say is one of the key SDGs that we're working on. Sigrid asked if you can get the presentation in an email. We'll send out the recording and the presentation. Yes, we'll make sure that everyone has that afterwards, just so you're aware. All of these, because we know not everyone can attend, all of these will be saved in the drive. So what are the roles of the different sectors? So this beautiful diagram is the quadruple helix. Has anyone here used this term before or heard of the term quadruple helix? I'm curious to know how. Maybe you've heard triple helix, the quadruple added in, I think, academic research as an extra one. But is anyone familiar with this term or concept?
Not with the term, but I used the four pillars in my own background, as you see.
Okay, so you're familiar with the concept, but you haven't
Yes.
used this word. That's interesting. Someone said the quintal helix as well. I'm sure, which is the fifth one, which was added. Okay, so Sigrid says the private sector's added. For some reason, I think I always hear about the quadruple helix from Dutch people. It's very common in the Netherlands as a term. I don't know why. It seems to have been adopted there a lot. So, okay. So basically these four pillars, and you could add 5, you could add 6. I'm sure there are different ways of grouping it. They all play a role when it comes to collaboration, development, and specifically sustainable development. And so what I want you all to talk about in the rooms is which of these 4 you identify with mostly, and how these 4 can be better integrated. So as an example, not to pick on any one sector, but the goals of each sector sometimes are slightly different and their way of communicating is slightly different. And so a private sector company might have climate action in its goals, but the way that it approaches and communicates that would be very different than the other sectors, for example. Academia is often criticized for not communicating the work that is and the research that is done with these other sectors, as an example. That's unfair because many academics and many institutions really do make a goal to do that, but that has been a kind of a historical criticism of academia. Government may be too rigid in its approach in a way that the private sector struggles to collaborate with, even if all 4 of these sectors have the same goals when it comes to sustainable development and climate change. So just quickly to summarize each of these, and again, feel free to write in your own comments in the chat. We'll have time to share as well if you have any key takeaways that you want to. But governance for me is integral to sustainable development. Government is a strong pillar, and especially in an island economy, governments tend to be a much higher percentage of the economy than they might be in a larger or mainland area. Government makes up a huge role within islands. Traditionally, the criticism of government is that it may be slow, it may take longer to do things, but they provide essentially the platform and the policy that allows all the other sectors to work together. So government, for me, is integral in any form of sustainable development to set that bedrock. Civil society, and this is a term that kind of encompasses activists, NGOs, nonprofits, international organizations. There's different words you could use. So society is a broad term. When we did, as Island Innovation, we did the work around COP26 last year. Civil society played a huge role at COP26 to advocate on behalf of indigenous groups, on behalf of women, on behalf of youth. There were various groups representing these different parts of society to make sure that these groups had a voice in the climate change negotiations, for example. And civil society can take different forms. It might be in the form of a very small nonprofit focused on a specific town or village or island, or it could be a big international NGO like Oxfam or the Red Cross working across borders. So there's obviously those types of organizations would have different approaches within civil society as a term as well. Private companies, I think, is a bit more clearer. It's business, it's capitalism, it's what role do the companies and what role do individual companies have? Again, you have big international multinationals, but also you have small local businesses. And often the private sector and government don't always work together as well as they should, but private sector has a huge role on the local and on the international level to move forward many of these goals towards sustainable development. And like I said before, the public policies adopted by government really set the framework for private companies to play there. Academia, again, universities, research groups play a huge role. One area that we as Island Innovation are trying to work on is that we have a huge network of universities, and we have an opportunity to help connect universities with policymakers to try and actually apply, because there's often been the case that some research is very valuable, but is not freely available to people who can actually use that to implement it. And so for us, the role of academia is hugely important to provide data. How do we actually make informed decisions? But one of the barriers is sometimes that information is not available for the people who need it. And this academia, and especially island-based universities that are embedded in the community and have that local perspective, are really critical to driving sustainable development. So those are the four sectors that I'd identified. Does anyone have any comments or questions, as we're a slightly smaller group, that they want to share on the quadruple helix or their experience of seeing these sectors work together or not work together? I want to encourage people to put their hands up or share or contribute. Go ahead.
Yes, I think about the private sector, that the social enterprise, they also play an important role, because they are acting like, companies or enterprises, but in the same time, they are a kind of NGOs. They have the NGOs goals, so they can work in the both sides. So they play a very important role to be also like a link between, again, the academy, that they do a lot of work, they do a lot of paper, but sometimes they don't know how to communicate with the general public. So maybe these social enterprises can be like a gate to open, to try to open a conversation between science and general public.
No, that's a really good point, Patricia, I think. And I was picking on academia a bit. I apologize, it's unfair. The problem is that all four of these sectors don't know how to communicate with each other in reality. And academia is just the one that is easier to criticize often because it's a more widely known issue. But government and private sector and NGOs, we work with all of those, and sometimes trying to get those different groups to talk to each other and use the same language is a harder issue than actually finding the technology to implement, for example. So social enterprises, I'll go to Jesse and then Joao, but just social enterprises, I think a hugely valuable point. We would include them under the business sector, but it's essentially, I agree, a hybrid really of NGOs and business. And I would say Island Innovation is a social enterprise, because we have, yes, the business, we are a business because that was in many ways an easier model for us to do, but we have these social goals and we interact with the civil society community and try and form that bridge. Jesse?
Yeah, so in Bermuda, I'm working in a group that's helped by the Waite Foundation to try to do marine spatial planning for our 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. And so marine spatial planning is a way of getting all these different stakeholders from different industries and government and science all together in one room to try and negotiate how we should use our ocean and whether we should protect certain areas or allow fishing here or not allow fishing there. And just the process is it's amazing, but it's incredibly challenging, because not only do we come from, different backgrounds and communicate differently, but even the way we go through a process is totally different. And some of us think really linearly and want, a lot of evidence before they can come to any sort of opinion. And Others want to think more iteratively and more creatively or more collaboratively. And some think of things as being very binary. It's either a yes or a no. And others want things to be more sort of generative, like looking for win-wins. So it's actually the process that I found really challenging because we all work so differently. And I find that, I mean, it's wonderful, but it's also frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good point. Joao?
Thank you. You hit the nail in the head, James, when you said that the communications among these four pillars is very difficult. I will not go into the details at this point, but I'll say yes for two main reasons. One, there is a lack of infrastructure. And second, eventually more important, is that I've witnessed that there is a tendency of calling different names to the same concept, what generates a huge confusion, even the type of a document. Some entities call it document A, some document B, some document C. So in order to put all of them communicating efficiently, there is a lot of work to do. Second note for my intervention. I would say that this quadrupelix misses the fifth pillar, which is financing, and that is why I'm very curious about this finance forum, because for government to implement policies, for business to provide all sorts of needed technology for the islands, the need for influencing society for this or that or academic research, you need money. So clearly you need, everything can only work if there are a finance pillar, either United Nations or NGOs or banking, whatever. But finance is what makes all of this going. And that is my contribution.
No, thank you so much for that. And the reason that we started the Island Finance Forum was for seeing that gap. So it's an interesting idea for that fifth pillar to be the financing, because we would do our virtual island summit, which was our original conference in September. We had all of our policymakers and, for want of a better word, sustainability geeks coming in, and we didn't have, no one with the money was there. No one knew how to pay for it. It's great, all these ideas, but how do you pay for it at the end of the day? And so bringing the bankers and the investors into the conversation and helping to build that bridge. I remember going into a conversation and throwing out terms like the SDGs and finishing my intervention, and they said, whoa, what's the SDG? And that was like the first thing I said. We had to go right back to the conversation. And obviously some banks are very in tune with that, others not so much. Chirag?
So here on Guam, and this was specifically last year, I was the chief of staff for the Speaker of the Legislature. We were in our budget cycle, and there was a request to fund $500,000 out of a over $1 billion budget for our government for our Guam Green Growth Initiative, which was a partnership between the government and our University of Guam. But essentially what they did was they give out a scholarship a year to a student who wants 17 scholarships for each of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And each student, applied for a particular goal that they wanted to accomplish. But also through the Guam Green Growth Initiative, you start, it was such a hard sell to pass $500,000 out of $1 billion budget, which, it's pennies compared to the bigger pie. But now that the people who are so against it, all the events that Guam Green Growth does, one thing that I think that, they did that was really unique was, they went out and collected used bottles and used cans, and now they have an entrepreneurship center where you can 3D print materials and sell. They'll help you with the business model and everything, but you use all the recycled materials. And all the people who are voting no against it, they're so proud to stand there and take their picture saying, hey, we support this. But I think, the unique thing about islands is we have to count on each other and the successes we have in each of our different jurisdictions and kind of tell that story. So if anybody's having issues talking to policymakers, we have a great success story here. I was one of the key staffers who got that passed. And if anybody wants to talk more about it, I'd be more than happy to help out.
Super interesting. Thanks, Chirag. We followed the Green Growth Initiative in Guam a lot, and the university has been involved with some of our events as well. The University of Guam does some really great research. So that's, we'll definitely, I'm sure lots of people have questions for you too. We'll just go to Sigrid for the last comment.
Yeah, I think how the quadruple helix now works is that the finance is included in every sector. So the government brings their own finance, like for instance, subsidies or something like that. The academic side are getting larger subsidies or grants, and I think in the business. It could be business as well, like saying, for instance, the business of cultivating seaweed, but it could be as well private investors trying to make a business model out of blue carbon. So everybody could bring their own finance. However, I do agree a lot on this point. It would be lovely to get a larger overview of this and put things like business and governance, the problem of governance, outside of this quadruple helix, like a certain extra atmosphere around it. Okay, that's it.
No, that's, yeah, I agree. I think that financing part needs to be made. And obviously you could draw these models in different ways. So appreciate those points. And I was just gonna move on, but Jesse made a really interesting point in the chat. So do go ahead and read that. It's different in a small island context than in a large continental area. In a way, the different sectors are forced to work together in a way that they may not need to in a larger area or in a continental area. But at the same time, those relationships may be more personal. And it's easy to forget how those personal relationships can play a huge, they can help, but they can also hinder development of many initiatives. It's amazing how often you see that. And not even just in small islands, they could be in larger island communities too, where these personal relationships get in the way. But on the flip side, they can help because there's a greater understanding of perhaps the different people involved in the different parties. And you can see, you know, almost individuals that represent each of these sectors as opposed to faceless blocks. So great point, Jesse. Okay, we're almost in for the groups. So I think this was just one more. Why should we collaborate? Yeah, emphasizing the UN SDG goal 17 as the partnerships for the goal and how that can drive sustainable development. So with that networking time, we'll have, oh, my Zoom's disappeared. Here we are. We'll have around 15, just over 15 minutes in the group, and then I'll come back for some announcements just before we wrap up. Don't worry, everything will be emailed over as well at the end of the session, so you will have access to those. I'm just going to pause the recording. Okay, everyone's coming back on the rooms. I know there's never enough time for these discussions, but hopefully you have a good taster. This is where the Slack comes in. I think I would love to go around everyone. We have 50 people here. I'd love to hear each of your comments on what was discussed and any key takeaways. We don't have time. If you have something you're burning to share with the group, pop it in the chat here, but also let's use the Slack to keep these discussions going. Any key takeaways or things that you'd like to do, please post in the Slack channel, and we'll be able to have those conversations here. For example, I was popping in and out of some different meetings, and I heard in multiple places people talking about ocean literacy, which is super interesting. And it's good to see that there's multiple people working on that, for example, as an area. So we'll try and connect you all up to share information between what you're doing on ocean literacy. I also wanted to remind you about the map. I know the map, Jerome has been busy updating it, so I've just popped the link in the chat again, but it's also linked from your ambassadors page. and the map should mostly have been updated now. There were a few people missing or a few people whose profiles needed updating. If not, Isabel can help you if you see anything else that needs changing. It was a lot of work to add everyone in there and make sure you all in the right place. So thanks for your patience on that. But the map is also just kind of fun to spend some time browsing around the world and seeing everyone who's involved and where everyone is from. So definitely worth doing. Okay, just in our last few minutes, I got a few quick announcements to share before we wrap up. So next steps, the ambassador resource page. I don't know, Stacey, if you have the link handy to it and can pop it in the chat by any chance. I don't have it. The ambassador's resource page has everything you should need in one handy place. Remember that there is this password that you need to access. From there, you can get the links to the WhatsApp, to the Slack, to the map, to anything else you need, a list of all the different platforms, etc. So that link hopefully will appear shortly in your in the chat. I was just trying to find it. Has everyone managed to access this page okay? Any issues with accessing the ambassador page? See everyone nodding, okay. So that's useful for a resource. Any luck, Stacey, finding that? Yeah, okay. Great, it's there, and your password is there. I'm going to type that in the chat as well, ambassador_2022. So everything is there. Make sure you use that as your first point of contact whenever you're looking for some information. Oh, that was not what I meant to do. Okay. We are now going to be using the Slack even more. So each week we'll be posting a challenge, obviously optional to join, but something that I think will be useful for us to get to know each other in the Slack channel. So that you can follow this link. For those of you, there's still a few stragglers who haven't joined Slack yet. But if you're in the Slack, we'll post each week, maybe asking for a photo of your island or asking for the biggest challenge or the best case study, random things each week as a way of engaging everyone and asking you to contribute. So do keep an eye out on the Slack. We'll post a reminder in the WhatsApp channel. The WhatsApp channel really is just a place to post reminders because I know sometimes people miss the emails, for example. But between email and WhatsApp, you should get all the reminders you need, and then everything will be on the ambassadors page and in the Slack. If anything is not clear, please just let me know. You can raise your hand in the participants tab or type it in the chat if you have any questions. So next training session, March 31st at 6 p.m. GMT, UK time. So in about, oh, that's next week, not that long away. So this will be we'll have an external speaker coming in and delivering a training workshop that will actually make quite a nice connection to everything that was discussed today. So we'll send some more information out about that, but do make sure that you've added this to your calendar. And if this doesn't work for your time zone, I know it's a different time zone to now, we'll send out that over video as well. Someone just asked if you can have Slack on PC. Yes, you can use Slack on your phone, but also on your PC, whichever one you prefer really, or both. I have it on both. Oh, that's my last slide. So with that, we finished on time. Any final comments or questions from anyone here to share before we wrap up?
Excellent session. Thank you.
Thank you, Joao.
Excellent session, James. We're still missing a lot of people on Trinidad and Tobago on the map, though. Okay.
Okay. Are you on there, Adrian?
No, I'm not. There are only two people, Ian Smart and I can't remember the young lady's name.
Okay, let me check that.
Sure.
Check that and we'll get back to you. Thanks for highlighting that. I'll ask Isabel.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Feel free to jump out if you're finished. I'll hang around for a minute or two if you do have questions or anything.
Okay, thank you.
I can't tell if people are.
Fantastic.
Was
All
it
right.
good?
Oh, Sigrid, was that a question or a
comment?
Thank you.
I have
ahead.
a question. There are lots of congresses and seminars, etc., going on this year, especially on ocean, and all the islands obviously have a coastline. So, is the island innovation will they be part of the United Nations Ocean Conference, for instance, in Lisbon? Because I will be myself will be there, and maybe we can gather around physically and have a chat and see if we can come up with let's say, workable plans for islands to gear up their possibilities. Because what I really feel is that we are stuck in talking in all those things, and I want we need to save our islands.
No, I completely understand that frustration. As a side note, I live in Lisbon. Not sure if you knew that. So let's definitely make plans. I'll be at the conference as well. I'm trying to figure out my ticket, but I should be planning on attending or planning some of the side events. We've been thinking, we kind of started to do this at COP, and now it looks like things are going more back to normal. We're looking at some of these big international events, perhaps organizing some mini island innovation gatherings around those. So Sigrid, great to know that you'll be coming to Lisbon. Let's talk about that. There'll also, another big one is obviously the COP in November, which is going to be held in Egypt. But also if people are seeing other, I mean, there are so many events, we obviously can't be at all of them, but if you're seeing other key events taking place in person, then do flag those with us and we'll see which of those we can put on our agenda. But for this year, in terms of physical events, obviously we have our own virtual events, but physical events that we're planning on being involved in, the World Oceans Conference, the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon is one, and the COP26 in Egypt in November is another. And we want to use those to kind of create content and information also, so that people who cannot attend them can at least benefit from those discussions. But yeah, we'll definitely, let's plan on meeting then, Sigrid.
Yeah.
I'm also planning to come into Lisbon from Mumbai. So if we can, if I can assist in any way, host any of the side events or help ma'am who, is talking about the Lisbon event in any way, I'd be willing to do so and organize any event for island ambassadors. That will be fantastic to be part of the group. So I'm planning to come in as well. Maybe if you're hosting a few things earlier than the actual dates, I could come in earlier as well. All right.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward. Yes.
Oh, that's great. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of others. I know we have a couple of Portuguese ambassadors and plenty of others who'll be attending. So that's great. And for those who are not going to be in person, there'll be plenty of virtual content as well. So we'll keep you posted on all of that. Fantastic. Thanks for bringing that up, Sigrid.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, thanks, Elsie. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.